Hi yogis and welcome. So I'm going to share with you a 20-minute short practice about releasing your hips. This is a perfect practice to practice any time of day. If it's first thing in the morning and you're wanting a gentle warm up, or if it's been after a run and you're wanting to cool down your muscles, or even at the very end of the day. So enjoy your practice. What I would suggest is perhaps to have a couple of blocks, and we're going to begin in child's pose. So we're going to begin with the knees a little bit wider than hip distance apart. And crawl your fingers forward towards the top of the mat. Let's take a nice long breath in, perhaps letting the fingers crawl a little bit further forward. And as you exhale, sink the hips down to the heels. Taking 2 more breaths, long, slow, deep breath, filling up the base of the ribs. Emptying out completely, softening the shoulders away from the ears. And give your head a gentle rock from side to side. We'll gently begin to now rise up to your hands and your knees. We'll take a couple of cat-cow poses, lifting the heart, extending up through the neck, nice and long through the front of the throat. And then exhale, round the spine. Tuck the tailbone, spread through the back of the shoulder blades. Couple more on your own. And the breath becomes smooth. You can close down the eyes if it feels more comfortable. And allow you to start to drop your awareness inwards. And then we'll take a moment to stretch out through the shoulders. So I've stepped the knees back just a little bit further back so we can extend the arms towards the top of the mat, melting heart pose. If this is a little tight through the shoulders, feel free to widen your hands a little wider apart to the outer edges of the mat. And we're continuing to draw the shoulder blades down the spine. Rest your forehead or your chin on the mat and take one last breath in the sides of the ribs. Allowing the rib cage and the back of the heart to melt down to the front of the chest. And gently, slowly come forward. Let your hips and belly come all the way down to the floor, Sphinx pose. Tops of the feet reaching back and down as the heart pulls through the gateway of the arms. Let's take one last breath here. Hug the outer ankles in just a little, lengthen the tailbone down. If you wish to take a deeper back bend, placing the hands at the corners of the mat for seal pose. Straightening the elbows, eyes to the sky. This is a great little pose to help stimulate the spine and the kidneys. We start to lower all the way down so those kidneys get a nice flush of fresh blood flow energy. Pressing back in a child's pose. Hips sink back to the heels. You can walk your hands over to the left side of the mat, perhaps off of the mat. So the outer right arm wrap in and down to stretch through the side of the right arm. And the torso, as you press down, sink those hips back. And then walk your hands over to the opposite side. And this can be done anytime, night or day. These forward folds help us to soften the mind, to slow down our thoughts, to come into the body. It helps to really focus on deepening the breath, letting the ribs expand out like a fan. Coming back to center when you're ready. We'll slowly begin to rise up to hands and knees once again. And this time we're going to come into downward facing dog. Curl the toes, lift the knees up, and stretch the heels back and down. And take a couple of rocks from side to side, pedaling out the back of your calf muscles. Pressing all 10 knuckles down, take a sweet breath in. Empty out through the mouth. Walk forward towards the top of the mat, nice and slow. Come into a halfway lift. Here you might like to place your hands on the blocks beside your feet, or come onto your fingertips, or perhaps the hands to the shin bones. As you exhale, fold all the way forward and down. This can be a beautiful place to grab opposite elbow, opposite hand, and give yourself a gentle sway from side to side. Smooth, deep breath in. The ocean of breath out. Last full breath in. Let it carry like a wave, sweeping away any thoughts. Release the hands down. Come into a halfway lift, long spine, bending the knees as much as needed. And we're going to step the left foot back, right to the back of the mat, dropping the back knee all the way down. We raise the arms high, up overhead, deep breath in. Exhale, sink hips down. So feel free to allow the hips to soften with gravity. And extending up through the fingertips, we open the arms, bending the elbows wide so you get a chest opener here. Release both of the hands down. From here, move the back knee back a little bit further. Just straighten out the front leg. Bowing forehead to your shin bone. Again, like a wave, come into a halfway lift. Bending your front knee. And then we'll bring the hands on the inside of this right foot. Toe heel the right foot to the right, and we'll give ourselves a couple of rocks back and forth. So you're getting into the hips, this outer right hip and the hip flexor of the left leg. And if you'd like to stay here on the hands, you can, or give your wrists a little break, coming down onto your elbows. I've got my elbows on blocks. You could, of course, use that, or a pillow if you have a pillow instead, or just onto the floor. Here for 3 more breaths. Forward folds, just like this one, allow us to tap into that rest and digest response. And also our psoas, the iliopsoas, it is often coordinated and corresponds with our stress and our sympathetic nervous system. So as we start to open up that front hip flexor, we can feel the back of the neck soften and any tension release through each exhale. And gently come back up. We'll slowly rise back up onto those hands. You can move your blocks to the side or have them on either side of your front foot, and then stepping back into downward facing dog. And start to walk forward once again to the top of the mat. Take a halfway lift. Inhalation, hands can be on blocks, fingertips or shins. And exhale, fold all the way down. Inhale, raise your arms up over your head. Big breath in. And exhale, folding from your hips. We start to bow. Slide your hands down the backs of your legs like you're warming up the hamstrings, coaxing them into a nice, gentle forward fold opening. Halfway lift, release the hands down. And stepping the right foot back to the back of the mat. Again, dropping the back knee all the way down. Anjaneyasana, low lunge. This is a great preparation pose for the splits. This is also part of a great runner's lunge. So we're sinking the hips with gravity. Allow the tummy to draw in as the eyes search for the ceiling, maybe the stars beyond. Open the arms wide, release the hands down, half split. So we move the back knee a little further back to accommodate for straightening out the front leg. The wave of breath rises, the tide comes in. And then exhale, the outgoing tide of the breath helps drape your torso over your leg. Once again, we roll forward. You can bring the hands or the blocks to the inside of the front leg. Toe this left foot off to the side a little bit, and it's perfectly fine depending on how your body is built. If you want to let the outer edge of the foot roll open, it can feel really good to get right into that deeper hip socket where the femur and the hip meet. That is called the acetabulum, and it can feel like you're getting a little deeper into that real deep part of the hip joint if we roll and lift that big toe up. So we're trying to supinate the foot just a little bit here. And then from here, we can start to settle into our runner's lunge, coming down onto the elbows, keeping a nice steady awareness of the breath. Inhale for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can rock a little side to side. Inhale for 4. And exhale a little longer for 5. Lengthening of the exhale helps trigger that relaxation response. Soften the shoulders, the back of the neck. Good work, yogis. Let's come back up. And this time we're going to move the blocks off to the sides. Please slide the left knee back. Once again, like we did at the beginning, Anahatasana. Extending the heart forward. Keeping the hips vertical over the knees. Melt the heart down right towards the floor. Forehead can rest on the mat or chin and chest. And we'll finally come forward once again into an easy Sphinx pose. Lay your pelvis down, hips down, pressing into the tops of the feet. Feel free to take our seal pose once again. It's a little bit more of an uplift through the chest and the arms. And exhale, slowly lower back down. Slide your hands underneath your chest, cobra or upward facing dog. Back to either child's pose or downward facing dog. Smooth breath in. A long breath out. Let's take the right leg up towards the sky. Bending the knee, opening the top hip, letting that feel good. It's like you're throwing open the cupboards and letting the stale air out and the sunshine in. And exhale, knee to navel. We step forward to the top of the mat. Grab your block, place it to the outside of your right ankle, and we open up for Warrior 2. Our warrior poses are a great hip opener as well. You're going to take the arms, reverse the warrior so the palms flip up to the sky, keeping a bend in the front knee. Or if you're wanting to relax the leg a little, straighten the front leg. And then extended side angle. Right hand comes down to that block that's waiting for you beside your foot. Left arm either wrapping around behind your back or extending all the way up to the ceiling or overhead. Here for 3 breaths. Keep feeling a sinking of the front thigh bone so it's parallel to the earth. Press your knee up against that right arm and keep hugging the right outer hip in as you look underneath your left armpit. And from here, Skandasana. Over to the left side. Crouching down nice and low. Spend a few breaths letting yourself come forward and down. This is a great pose for anyone who's really tight through the hips or the adductors in the groin. Inhaling slowly back up, walking to the top of the mat. Similar, second set, runner's lunge, but we'll add a quad stretch in. So we bend the back knee, let it rest on the floor. Reach the right hand back. And as you pick up that back foot, pull the heel in as close to your bottom as you can. So use your bicep strength. Lift your heart as you gaze over your right shoulder. If you want to take it a little further, you can bring your left elbow down to the floor or a block and bring your forehead down to the back of your hand. Last breath here. This is a really good one if your quadriceps are quite tight. Sometimes it can feel almost excruciating. And my runners and cyclists always complain, but it hurts so good, right? It's why you come back for a little bit more. We toe heel that foot across to the left, and we're here for half pigeon pose. Again, you can tuck a block or a blanket underneath that right outer hip. Any props that will help you steady your hips, create an evenness can really help. And then we slowly come forward and down onto the elbows or forehead to the back of the hands. The hips are definitely an area that like to hold tension quite naturally when we do a lot of sitting, or if your job involves you running around, standing up a lot during the day, it can help to alleviate lower back pain and tension. So feel as though the right outer hip is like a candle. And when that candle heats up, the wax turns soft. And feel that soft, waxy sensation spreading through the right buttocks and hip. Inhaling slowly, coming back up. This time for Gomukhasana. So we're going to keep our seat. Wrap your left leg around and try to take your left thigh bone on top of the right. So we're here in our shoelace pose. For those of you who are familiar with yin, the term shoelace, we're literally like the shoelace pattern, trying to cross those thigh bones over each other. And then we start to ease forward. You're welcome to stack a few blocks if you want to take more of a supported yin style shoelace. And that way you have support for your neck. You can completely relax the attachment of the neck and the shoulder yoke. This is a superb stretch for any of my yogis who are a little tighter through the hips, or my athletes. I recommend this one strongly for cyclists. Anyone who's really tight, this can be a bit of a doozy. So take 2 more breaths. And without forcing it, see if instead of forcing or fighting it, you can soften, surrender with gravity into the shape. Inhaling back up as you're ready. Unwind your legs. So we uncross the shoelace. Place your feet down. Have your hands behind you for a reverse table. So we squeeze the shoulder blades back behind you. Really begin to open through the chest. Then we elevate the hips, the eyes to the sky, and perhaps dropping the head back. You can give a little rock forward and back. Bring your chin back into your chest. And then when you're ready, we slowly release back down to downward facing dog. You can cross the ankles, place the hands, and step back. Left leg to the sky when you're ready. Spreading through the palms of the hands, bend the upper knee, and open that hip. Big step to the top of the mat. Place your block to the outside of your ankle, open into warrior 2. So I always say 30 minutes of yoga is better than no yoga, and same with 5 minutes. And this is one of those poses that kind of gets everything, both strengthens, gets the blood circulating, and stretches. So we'll throw that in there for you. Reverse your warrior. Inhale. Start to feel that opening through the left side body, the waist, the arm, the lung. And then extended side angle. We bend the front knee again. Place the left hand on the block or floor outside of your foot. Top hand mirrors the same that you did on the other side. Stay here for 3 or 4 breaths. Back foot anchors down. Let your left knee press gently up against the inner arm and hug the outer hip in as you stretch from the pinky finger of the top hand to the back foot. Release the hand down, coming over into your Skandasana lunge. The back heel here, the right heel can be lifted. That's an important thing to remember. It's okay to lift the heel and let your head drop forward and down. Taking a moment to be here with your breath. We'll walk back to the top of the mat. And our second set of runner's lunge, we add on. So we have a nice healthy helping of quad opening. We reach the left hand back. Take a hold of the top of your foot. Get as much of a pull on that leg as you can. And then feel that sweet feeling of stretch up the front of the right leg, even to the front of the right hip. And of course, option, same as before, you can bring your elbow down and rest the forehead on the back of your hand. Last breath. Stay to the end of the exhale. I think that's so important. It's a very powerful moment, that pause. We release the back foot and then toe heel the left foot across to the right. And the two sides can be very different, wildly different, in fact, from one another. So just notice if you feel like you might benefit from assistance or block on this side. Feel free to set it underneath the sitting bone. You can have the back toes tucked under if this helps alleviate some of the knee pressure, or feel free to untuck the toes, pointing the toes of the back foot, and continuing to wrap the right outer hip towards the floor. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 5 or 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause at the top. Exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more breaths. Try to soften the armor, that outer layer, that outer shell that we wrap around us to protect us from the outer world. Now we're allowing ourselves to soften. Coming back up, keep that beautiful relaxed state of mind as you wrap this right leg around. Shoelace, Gomukhasana. Sometimes it can be helpful to move the calf muscles out of the way or rearrange the hips. And again, we're coming into a supported forward fold if you'd like to, setting up your blocks. I often find 2 blocks definitely more accessible than just the one. But if you don't have that many blocks, you could always prop your fists up on something or simply soften forward. There's a little saying that what we resist persists. And I definitely find that to be true with the hips. Whenever I find a pose you might feel the same that we're not very good at and we tend to avoid it, unfortunately that tightness and that frustration will keep persisting. So the best thing to do is to find the edge, and even if you don't like it, you don't have to like it, you don't have to love it. It doesn't even matter if you loathe it, we're still in it. So see if you can soften into that experience without the resistance from the mind or that pushing away from our inner resistance. See how the body will respond. And really, the most courageous thing we can do in our hip poses is to let the armor drop and to go into that sensation. Less gripping, less resistance. We'll slowly come back up. And I am speaking from experience as a runner all through high school and a gymnast, very explosive, did pole vaulting, all those things. I had very tight hips for a very long time. Thank goodness for yoga. We're going to place the hands behind us. And slowly but surely, after 5 or 6 years, I started to see those results. Hopefully you won't take as long. Again, we're pushing those hips up. Take a deep breath in. And then lower the hips all the way back down. Extend the legs forward. Take one last breath in as we reach high to the sky. Exhale, fold forward over your legs. Taking that last full wave of breath. Soften a little further over the tops of your legs. Inhale and come back up. And then we'll cross the ankles, come to a seated position. So yogis, this concludes our short mini hip sequence. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you feel wonderful. If you have some time, please feel free to stay a little longer or to lie onto your back and enjoy Shavasana. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Namaste.